And we just got, speaking of New York City, Mayor Giuliani, former Mayor Giuliani's mugshot from Arizona authorities. He was hard to get a
subpoena.
To. They finally did. This is his mugshot. That's not the mugshot. We'll try to get it. Sorry, by the way, this is the mugshot. That was another mugshot of his, which clearly he's gotten a lesson from that prior mugshot, because this one he's smiling at least.
Listen, I don't think Rudy Giuliani is doing well. Like, there's something going on with Rudy Giuliani. This mugshot is not a normal mugshot. This is not that. Let's show the real mugshot. Okay. All right, there we go. Well, what's happening here, Waz? What's going on?
He's having the time of his life. I don't know. I don't get it. Maybe it is he's getting older, and his grasp on reality is starting to slip a little bit. I don't want to be ageist here, but it's hard. It's hard to imagine, man. Again, the guy that got elected twice in New York City and left office as America's mayor. Like, this guy's Q rating was so unbelievably high. Just one of the most famous politicians in the country. And I will remind people, again, it bears mentioning every single time, his reputation was took the mob down in the 80s, quote unquote, cleaned up New York City in the 90s. Like, that's what this guy's rep was, like a prestigious rep. From his days as a prosecutor to his days as the mayor in New York, after David Dinkins, of course, New York City's black mayor, the first black mayor. Trust me, that played a part in it. 4 years of Dinkins, and then Giuliani comes to and quote unquote cleans things up, right? And look, man, he had a great reputation, even led him to run for president a couple of times. To see him go from those heights, him and George Bush, like, to taking pictures together and all of that stuff after 9/11, to what he's become, to where he's giving these horrible smiles at his second mugshot situation. It's just crazy. Like, a former prosecutor. This is what it's come to for him. It's crazy.
I want to believe that everyone has at least one family member who loves them enough to eventually lock them in a basement. Like, and what I mean by that, look, I don't literally mean lock them in a basement, but I do think Rudy Giuliani is suffering from some level of mental decline, because even though he's now charged in Maricopa County, Arizona, that's where this mugshot's from, he's continuing to incriminate himself publicly. And I don't know, I would maybe, if I was of sound mind, shut the F up and stop incriminating myself. But he can't help himself. Like, that's why I say there's something going on with him. And so I think for people who are in the limelight and have that public prestigious reputation, as you get older, for some people, it's hard for them to understand or know when to maybe give it a rest and become a private citizen. And with Rudy Giuliani, clearly he's unwilling to do that. So just to give you a few more details about the Arizona case. So a grand jury charged Giuliani with pressuring Arizona legislators and the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors to change the results of the state's presidential election, and with encouraging Republican electors in Arizona and 6 other contested states to vote for Trump. Now remember that Biden actually won Arizona by more than 10,000 votes. So yeah, I mean, it's a relatively close election, but 10,000 votes isn't like 50 votes or 100 votes or 500 votes. It's 10,000 votes. This case is one of Giuliani's 2 unresolved criminal cases stemming from Trump's loss to Biden. A grand jury in Georgia had previously charged him with spearheading efforts to compel state lawmakers to ignore the will of voters who rejected the former president in favor of Biden, and illegally appoint pro-Trump electors to the Electoral College. And so that's what the case is about. Obviously, based on what he said behind closed doors that we've learned about and what he has said since then publicly, He was very much involved. During his virtual arraignment on May 21st, Giuliani pleaded not guilty to 9 felony charges. And during his arraignment, he was ordered to pay a secured appearance bond of $10,000 and appear in Arizona within a month for booking procedures, which he obviously did. That's how we got that mugshot. And he confirmed posting $10,000 bond in cash as well. Now, this is what I'm talking about when I say he just continues to publicly incriminate himself. So after that mugshot was taken, Giuliani spoke to an NBC affiliate, a local affiliate, KPNX of Phoenix, and just like made things worse for himself. So the reporter asked, "Do you have any regrets about what you did in Arizona after the election?" He says, "Oh my goodness, no." Reporter asks, "Why not?" He says, "I'm very, very proud of it. There was a substantial amount of vote fraud that went on here that was covered up, probably one of the biggest conspiracies in American history." So he just confessed to the crime publicly, by the way, like that's what he just did in that statement, while again repeating something that is false. There's no evidence of widespread voter fraud in Arizona or any of the other states where Biden won. Rudy also said this is a complete misuse of the criminal process to interfere with the 2024 election. So look, I think the timing of the Arizona prosecution, maybe you can make that case, because it's like, I don't know, Waz, do you think I'm being unfair? I just feel like they waited until we got as close to the election as possible to pursue these prosecutions. And I think the timing is political. But do I think that people who took part in the fake elector scheme, do I think that they should be investigated, prosecuted fairly? And yeah, I do think that that should happen. I think what happened, not just on January 6th, January 6th was just, in my opinion, a small part of it. It's all of the planning of the fake electors that was the real issue here and could have actually worked had it not been for Mike Pence refusing to play along with it.
Yeah, they're definitely playing politics with the case for sure in terms of the timing. But again, I tend to agree with you. And these are serious crimes, folks. Like this is serious, fraud that these guys tried to perpetrate, and they were doing it in service of handing an entire freaking election to Donald Trump. Like this to me, honestly, Anna, is about 20 times worse than January 6th.
I agree.
Because it could actually work. Now, people died on January 6th, got very injured. Like that's tragic, but I can't say this enough to people. They were never going to take over the government on January 6th. That's not how an actual coup works. The army, whoever, the state police would have went down there, bashed some skulls, killed some people. And that thing would have been over. They were never going to overthrow the government on January 6th. However, on a state level, you could steal an election on the state level. Just ask George W. Bush.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. And what in the chicanery these did in Florida in the 2000 election. Okay, like you can actually pull this off, and we've actually seen it, especially when you have a favorable court. And so, yeah, I think these crimes are mega serious, and I think I think some heads should roll, honestly, behind this stuff.
I totally agree with you, and I think that the broadcast media, so I'm talking about like cable news, television news, I believe that they really did a disservice in how they reported on the Trump camp's attempts to steal the election, because what they wanted to focus on was the spectacle of January 6th and referred to that as the coup attempt, when in reality, the coup attempt was the fake elector scheme that very well could have worked, to your point, had it not been for Mike Pence. If Mike Pence was a willing participant in that fake elector scheme, then I think it would have worked. And Cenk makes a really strong case for that. But explaining the fake elector scheme, that's not sexy, right? And you can't make generalizations about every Trump supporter being a violent, dangerous American. You know what I'm saying? So they would show the videos over and over again and make it seem as though that was really the heart and soul of the plot, but that really wasn't. And that's not to minimize those who actually engaged in violent behavior that day, but I don't think that it's accurate to say that the riots were indicative of the actual plan to overturn the election results. It was a tiny part of it.
But the part that matters is that the actual elites who were at the Capitol that day, the people in the House, the people in the government who dealt with these Looney Tunes, they were legitimately scared, and I think they had a right to be. And I think that's why it gets pumped up in the mainstream, because politicians actual politicians can go on TV and pretend that the sanctity of the democracy was on the line when it's like, the stuff that they tried to pull off in Pennsylvania, they tried it in Michigan, they tried it to obviously the furthest extent in Arizona. That was the real news, guys. That was them really trying to pull this stuff. And if you paid attention to what Mitch McConnell had to say afterwards, he's like, look, if you guys can do this, but you gotta actually have grounds to do it in the courts. We'll back the coup in the courts. We'll stack the decks. But this haphazard nonsense that you guys tried to pull off, no, I'm not gonna back this. No, the establishment is not gonna back this. No, the money is not gonna be okay with you guys doing this crap. There's a way to steal an election, and this just isn't it.
Yeah. Well, at least we got a fun mugshot out of it. Let's take another look. Just one final look before we wrap the show. There you have it. I wonder what he was looking at. I hope there wasn't a woman photographing him. Okay.
Yeah, that's the smile of a guy who just made the most disgusting, dirty joke to the waitress at Hooters. It's crazy.